Have you ever stopped to wonder um, what the really seasoned pros in your field would tell their younger selves? If they had that chance, knowing everything they know now.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Welcome to the FBS podcast. We're actually going to dive into exactly that today.
We are. We've got this really fascinating insight from a recent discussion. It was among alumni of the Forest Business School.
Right.
And that's a program, as you might know, designed specifically to help mid-career folks like you level up, navigate the complexities of the forest products industry.
Exactly. We got to listen in on this really candid chat. You had consultants, sawmill operators, loggers,
Yeah.
people from all over the industry.
Mhm.
And they were sharing these lessons, things they really wish they'd grasped much earlier on.
And the great thing for you listening is this isn't just theory, right?
No, not a...
This is practical stuff, hard-won wisdom from years out there in the sometimes pretty challenging world of forest business.
So our goal today is really to pull out the key themes, the actionable advice that, well, anyone looking to grow professionally can actually use.
Sounds good. Where should we start?
Okay, so let's unpack this. A really big theme right off the bat was about money, financial responsibility, but it had sort of two sides.
Okay.
So there was a logging contractor in the group who really hammered home something that honestly we probably all know deep down. The absolute necessity of keeping up with your taxes, staying on top of them.
Oh, yeah, that's huge, especially in forestry where income can fluctuate quite a bit, right?
Definitely.
Getting behind on taxes, that can start a whole cascade of problems it's tough to dig out of.
Exactly.
The advice seemed to be about discipline, like setting aside a portion of revenue during the good times, specifically for those tax obligations.
Yeah, to avoid that cash crunch later, super practical. But then on the flip side of finance, you had this consulting forester who shared this regret about not taking a financial risk, an opportunity that back then just felt overwhelming.
No, the one that got away?
Kind of. And what's interesting is they felt a relatively small amount of money, which seemed massive at the time.
Right.
Could have completely changed their career path. And now they said they'd be the first to offer that kind of support to someone younger facing a similar choice.
Wow. That really hits on that classic tension, doesn't it?
Ugh.
Caution versus potential reward.
It really does.
Looking back, those risks often seem smaller, the opportunities clearer. It's a good reminder to, weigh the potential upside, maybe get advice from someone who's been there.
Absolutely. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Another really powerful theme was this idea of business acumen.
Right.
Specifically, working on your business, not just in it.
The E-Myth principle, yeah.
Exactly. There was a consulting administrator, someone who works closely with the loggers and mills, and they see younger folks often making this mistake, too focused on the day-to-day, like running the equipment, the immediate tasks.
It's such a critical distinction. Working in the business is the hands-on stuff.
Yeah.
Running the skidder, managing the current harvest.
Yeah.
But working on it. That's the strategy. The long-term planning, financial management, team building, looking for growth. It's easy to get stuck in the technical weeds.
Totally. And they gave this specific example of a young logging business owner, spends almost all his time operating machinery.
Right. Feels productive, I bet.
In the moment, yeah. But the point was, his business growth is probably stalled because he's not carving out time for that crucial management, that strategic thinking.
It's a really common entrepreneurial trap. The skills that got you started can actually hold you back if you don't shift into more of a leadership role. You need to delegate, keep an eye on the big picture to really scale.
And that ties right into the next bit of advice. Build a strong team. Leverage their expertise.
Yes.
The message was clear. Surround yourself with good people who fill your gaps, who make you look better. You can't know everything.
Absolutely. Recognizing your limits and bringing in complementary skills.
Yeah.
That's smart business, not weakness.
Yeah.
Especially in this industry. Think about a sawmill owner juggling timber prices, efficiency, or a logger with huge equipment costs and regulations. You need a team.
No doubt. It leads to a more resilient business overall.
Definitely.
Okay, so what about learning? This theme of continuous learning, being open to advice, that came up again and again.
That's true.
One private consultant forester specifically regretted not being more receptive early on.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of put it down to being stubborn, thinking things would be easy.
Yeah, that youthful confidence. We've all been there, maybe.
Yeah.
But experience gives you that context, that shortcut on the learning curve, if you're willing to listen.
And just the value of asking questions, learning from other people's bumps and bruises.
Right. Despite the two ears, one mouth saying Sometimes you need to use the mouth to ask.
True.
It shows curiosity, not weakness.
Mm.
Most experienced folks are happy to share, and you learn so much.
And tied to that, being willing to admit when you mess up.
Oh, absolutely critical.
Someone stressed that acknowledging mistakes is just as vital as, well, making them in the first place, which you inevitably will.
Totally. Self-awareness, taking responsibility.
Yeah.
That's how you grow. You correct course. You don't repeat the error.
Which leads nicely into adaptability, avoiding getting complacent.
Yeah, that's a big one.
There was a chief operating officer who shared a story about getting too comfortable. He was in contracting, home restoration.
Okay.
And he sort of bypassed using his formal education because things were going well. Then the economy shifted.
Yeah.
And boom, he basically had to start over. Really drove home the need to keep challenging yourself, stay adaptable.
That's such a powerful lesson. Comfort can be dangerous in business.
Yeah.
Things change. You have to keep learning, keep pushing your boundaries.
The phrase fake it till you make it even came up.
Oh, interesting. How was that framed?
More like learning on the job, but with a huge caveat. You have to stay accountable.
Right. There's a line there, isn't there? Learning by doing is often essential, but you can't just pretend. You've got to commit to actually mastering it and owning the outcomes.
Exactly. It's active learning while doing, not just bluffing.
Got it. Makes sense.
Okay, let's talk about something really fundamental. Getting paid.
Yes. The lifeblood.
The absolute necessity of prioritizing billing and collections. This was a major point. Several people had stories of getting burned,
I bet. It happened.
Letting payments slide. It hurts both sides, and the longer it goes, the harder it is to collect.
It's just non-negotiable for a healthy business.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how good your work is if the cash isn't flowing.
So the advice was super direct, clear payment terms up front, consistent follow-up on invoices. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone if something's late.
Right. Trust is good, but diligence is essential. Proactive communication helps avoid awkwardness later. Shows you're a professional.
Someone even suggested asking for upfront deposits, particularly for bigger projects.
That's smart risk management, especially with new clients or substantial work. It gives you security and shows the client's committed too.
Yeah. And there was that comparison to property management.
Right, the rent analogy.
Rent is due, period. Payment for services should be viewed similarly. Obviously, communication about delays is key, but the expectation needs to be clear.
Exactly. Empathy is important, but so are boundaries for a sustainable business.
Okay, slightly different angle now. Attitude. Work ethic.
Always important.
The discussion touched on just how much impact a strong work ethic has. And not just doing your tasks, but being willing to learn the whole business.
That wider perspective, yeah.
They contrasted some examples, younger employees who were really proactive, engaged, versus others who just did the bare minimum.
You see that, and that positive, proactive attitude, that curiosity, it really makes you stand out. It leads to more opportunities, more growth.
Someone actually made the point that sometimes just showing up reliably and being willing to work hard is enough to get noticed.
It sounds basic, but maybe it isn't always common. Reliability, punctuality, willingness. Those fundamentals are incredibly valuable.
Here's an interesting one that seemed to hit home for a few people.
Okay.
This idea that good decisions in life and career often could have been made a year sooner.
Looking back of 2020 vision.
Right. The advice was basically, don't overthink viable opportunities forever. Sometimes you just need to act sooner.
Analysis paralysis. It's real. Careful thought is needed, of course, but yeah, sometimes you need to trust your gut, seize the moment, and learn as you go.
And the final theme we pulled out was humility.
Good one.
Recognizing your limits. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room.
In fact, it's often better if you're not.
Exactly. Surround yourself with knowledgeable people. Being able to say, I don't know, is a strength, not a weakness.
It really is. Shows intellectual maturity. Opens you up to learning. And it's funny, the more experience you get, the more you realize how much you don't know.
Someone actually said that. That with more experience, they became less certain in their snap judgments.
Makes sense.
A shift from seeing things in black and white to understanding the complexity, the nuance.
Experience does that.
Yeah.
You appreciate different perspectives more. Things are rarely simple.
So wrapping this all up, this deep dive into what the FBS alumni shared, It really highlights some key things for anyone looking to grow, right?
Definitely.
That balance between risk and caution, especially financially. The huge importance of strategic business thinking, not just operational skill.
Crucial.
The constant need to learn, adapt, stay curious.
Absolutely.
And those fundamental financial practices, getting paid.
And forget that.
And this all ties back perfectly to what the Forest Business School is about, doesn't it? Equipping mid-career professionals like you with that knowledge, that mindset to really thrive in this industry.
It really does map directly onto the FBS mission.
So here's a final thought for you listening right now. Which bit of this advice really landed for you today? Where are you currently? Is there an area where maybe a bit more calculated risk could pay off? Or could you benefit from stepping back, focusing more on the strategic side of your work?
Or maybe just tightening up those billing practices.
Could be. Or perhaps just embracing that, I don't know, more often. Think about your own journey. What's one lesson from these experienced voices you can actually apply starting today to really push your own career forward?
Hey, this is Steve Bick with the Forest Business School. Thanks for listening to the FBS podcast, and I hope you will subscribe. The truth is, these deep dives barely scratch the surface of some of the topics we cover in the Forest Business School programs, and the podcast is a way of reaching a wider audience. Check out my website at vtfbs.com for more information. Reach out if you want to talk about one of the FBS programs or have custom training or project needs that you'd like to discuss. Again, thanks for listening to the FBS podcast.